So we'll go through the tools that we'll be using in your basic drafting kit. And it starts with your basic drafting board. You should all have a drafting board, whether you have an actual table or not. You should have at least this kind of portable drafting board that you can carry. Maybe it has a handle. These legs lift up so you can have a surface at an angle that you can set up on your kitchen table or your own little table at home. You may have an actual drafting table. That would be great. This is a little bit larger, 24 by 36, set up on top of this table, and it includes a parallel rule. That's this rule right here that slides up and down and always maintains a parallel line. It's the replacement of the old T-square. We used to have T-squares that we put at the side of the table and then move that up manually. Here, the parallel rule rides on these cables and tracks. So you lift it up, slide it down, and it'll stay horizontal. And in order to make the vertical lines, we'll be using triangles. Now, there are a number of different triangles. I think your drawing kit will include an 8-inch 45-degree triangle. This is 8 inches is measured by the height, or the base in this case, the base of a triangle, height of a triangle. It's called a 45-degree triangle because it's a right triangle, which means the one angle is 90 degrees. The other two angles are 45 degrees. So it's really a 45 degree triangle. We also have a 30-60 triangle. Same idea. This is a 10-inch triangle because the height is 10 inches, even though the base is smaller and the hypotenuse is another size. But it's a 30-60 degree triangle. So we also have the same version of that in what we call lettering triangles. A small version of that, a 4-inch triangle. So when you want to do some small scale work, you don't have to use a big triangle. And the same thing for 30-60 version. Let's talk about the papers a little bit. Vellum is a higher quality paper to draft with. It has a little bit more tooth, a little bit more cotton fiber than, say, the white trace paper that we also have in our packet. You can see the difference here. It's a flimsier, sometimes we call it flimsy. Sometimes this paper comes in yellow. We call it yellow trace. Other names are known as bumwad. We used to call it in school also because it's so cheap, really. But it's good for you just scratching out, working out ideas. And then vellum is a good quality for when you want to have more permanent drawings. The way you use the vellum is you unroll it. And one thing that's useful, we'll get to the scales later, how you use scales, but I find if you want to cut out a certain size paper, 18-inch by 24 inches, you can measure out your 24 inches on your scale and then use the crook of the roll and your scale to create a cutting edge. You just pull the paper towards you. You might have to slide it down to meet it. You can't get it all in one fell swoop. Lift, and you get a nice clean edge to tear off your paper. When you want to put your paper down, you flip it over on the convex side so that it lays flat. You know, if you don't put it on this way, what tends to happen, see how it's naturally laying flat now. If you flipped it over the other way, what tends to happen is it's always curling up and it's harder to control. The next thing we have is taping it down. So what we use to tape it down is our drafting dots. Comes in the set. The way the drafting dots work, there are a series of dots that are dispensed by pulling the back side of this tape out, and then a drafting dot will appear on the other side. You just peel it off, pull the tab back, and another tab comes out. You pull that off. So you want to tape down your corners of your paper. So line up your paper with your parallel rule so it stays relatively parallel. Then you keep your paper in place and place gently a dot at one corner. Just gently lay it flat, press the dot in the other corner. And do the same thing for the other two corners. So now we have the lead holders and the leads. The kit has one lead holder. I find these are preferable to the mechanical pencils of the 3mm, 5mm, and 7mm type because you can craft a better point to that. The lead holder works by clinch, and you have leads. We have a couple of sets of leads in our set as well. I think the kit includes a 2H lead, and this number tells you what the grade of the lead is. 2H means it's a medium hardness, and the other set is an F. The F indicates the grade, and the sequence of leads go from, in the scale from hard to soft, you go, the hardest lead they produce is a 9H, that's like practically a nail. 2, 9H, 8H, 7H, 6H, 5H, 4H, 3H, 2H, and H. And then it gets into the medium weight, softer lines, which is the F. The F is more of a fine line. And then it gets softer still to HB, is a cross between hard and black, or soft. And then it gets progressively softer down the scale from HB to B, and then again 2B, 3B, 4B, 5B, 6B, 7B, and 8B. The range that we'll use is basically between 3H and 3B. You know, they're extremely hard, 3H, and 3B is extremely soft. Eventually, as you control your hand weight and line weight, you can do all your drafting pretty much with one lead. I tend to use F lead, and I can cover all ranges of hardness and softness by using varying hand pressure to make it black. But we will have our 2H lead for the hard, light lines, and the F lead for the soft, darker lines. When you want to sharpen your lead, we have these lead pointers, okay? And the way the lead pointer works is it's a barrel. Top comes off. Inside is where all the lead shavings go, the grind. And then in order to sharpen the line, we have two holes, and they're gauged to make a pre-measured length of your lead, one for drafting a very sharp point, and one for lettering a blunt point. So a sharp point would go where the sharp pictogram is, a very sharp point, and a more blunt point for lettering. So if we're drafting, release your lead like this till you feel it hit the bottom, declench, press it down so now it's set for that exact length. You can now put it into the barrel of the sharpener, the pointer, and just grasp the barrel tightly, but let the top rotate smoothly. Grind it around, gently guide it. Don't force it, you'll break the point. You hear it grinding. You hear it grinding, and then at some point, you can feel that it's finished grinding. So once you do that, you take it out, you blow the loose dust off, and then what you do is depress that in there, and it cleans off the excess graphite. What I like to use is like just facial tissues. You know, I'll just take a tissue, and I'll just wipe that off like that to wipe off that dust. And since the point is so sharp, you have to kind of temper it. So I just grind it into the tissue a little bit just to make the point not so sharp that it'll break as soon as you draw it. Now it's tempered and ready to go. A drafter probably spends more time erasing lines than they do drawing lines. So what we have is a thing called a erasing shield. The erasing shield, one of the good features of this erasing shield is a series of dots, which is also good for drafting a dashed line. For instance, let's say you just draw your line. A dashed line is a series of dashes. You want to make sure they're evenly spaced. One thing that you can do with the help of an erasing shield and an eraser, this is a pink pearl good for erasing lead on bond, or a vinyl eraser, white vinyl eraser, which is good for pencil on vellum. So we have the horsehair brush to wipe clean all these erasure marks. You don't want any erasers to get underneath your trace or your vellum, because it'll then start telegraphing through and making your drawing very dirty and weird spots. So as soon as you see a mess like that, try to brush it off onto the floor. This is a compass that you can open. This is a cairn, a very nice instrument. When you fix your range, you fix it so it doesn't slide open anymore, and then you can draw your circle exactly to the scale you want it to be by just covering that. We have architect scales, and at another segment we'll talk about the specifics of these architect scales, but this has about 4 scales per side. 2 scales, one's always double the other one, and it goes anywhere from 1/16 of an inch all the way up to 3 inches equals a foot scale. Architect scales are measured in feet and inches. There are also metric scales, which are measured in metric units. They're ranging from 1 to 10 to 1 to 100, 1 to 250. You can get the same range of scales for metric use that you can scale with. I recommend having one of them as well. For larger scale, mostly engineers, we have an engineer scale. Engineer scale is still based in the foot and inch system, but it's more like large scale when you're doing site design, roads and such. So you have 1 inch equals 10 feet up to 1 inch equals 60 feet. So they're a much larger scale, and while they're still in the foot inch system, they're used for site engineers, grid engineers, and such.